you can tell who it is. If it turns out to be me, then just recording summer. I am the program coordinator for BreakThru, and you've probably seen my name on a bunch of emails. And we are so glad that you took the time this evening to come to this event and learn how to assist your students with disabilities transition from high school to college. And with us today is Patsy Moss, who is with the Disability Services Office at Georgia Perimeter College. And she also has in the past worked in the K-12 system. She knows that system very well, and she has worked a lot with students as a transition coordinator. So she is a wonderful expert, and Georgia Perimeter College is one of our partner schools with BreakThru. So we thought it would be really great for Patsy to come and talk to us. Julio Cruz is also with us today, and Julio, in addition to working at Disability Services, he's the Assistive Technology Coordinator, and he's also a mentor in the BreakThru project. So we are very excited to have both of them with us today to talk about the issues with transition from high school to college. And it's not as simple and easy as just getting admitted to college and the students are good to go. There's a lot of different things that the students need to do, and Patsy's going to talk about some of those. So I am going to be quiet now and turn this over to Patsy.
I can't see the. I need to see the.
Can you see your screen, Patsy?
We can, but not the present.
Jerry, you need to share the presentation for us.
Oh, am I not? My bad.
Okay, that helps. My cheat sheet. Okay, I am Patsy Moss. I'm a Disability Services Coordinator at Georgia Perimeter College at the Alpharetta Center. And I also do college career fairs for students with disabilities and their parents. I guess the biggest thing that we need to talk about is the comparison of K through 12 and post-secondary, because they are very different, and that is one of the issues that I deal with quite often with students coming right out of high school to meet with me in disability services. At K through 12, where you're under the Department of Justice, IDEA 504, and ADA. IDEA is Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. ADA, of course, is Americans with Disabilities Act, and the Department of Ed as well. K through 12, the student is identified, they're evaluated, they have an IEP, they ensure success in K through 12, and there's a lot of parent involvement in K through 12, as you know. Post-secondary, you're under the Department of Justice, 504 ADA, Office of Civil Rights. And at the post-secondary level is self-disclosure. The student would have to come to the Disability Services Office to disclose that they have a disability and present their documentation. We do referrals to the Board of Regents for testing. If students have testing that needs to be updated. I'm sorry, part of this screen is covering up. Hang on one second. Okay, that's a little bit better. Okay, sorry. At the post-secondary level, we do accommodation letters for our students, and they are responsible for giving those accommodation letters to their professors. We ensure access, not success, at the post-secondary level, and we are under FERPA and HIPAA. The FERPA is that we are not allowed to give parents information about the students. That's another huge issue in post-secondary, as the parents have been doing all of this for 12 years, and then all of a sudden, they are told hands off. So that's kind of it's a difficult transition for parents and for students as well. Next slide, please. Okay, accommodations are provided for each student with a documented disability based on the nature of the disability and how it impacts the student and the academic environment. It's not just the diagnosis of the disability, but it's also how that disability impacts the student in the classroom. Next slide, please. These are just an example of some of the disabilities: learning disabilities, ADHD, traumatic brain injuries, and these are some examples of some different accommodations. Extended time for tests is pretty common. Separate room for testing, use of tape recorders in class, note takers, e-text. E-textbooks are really wonderful, especially for students with learning disabilities in reading comprehension, ADHD students, and students with traumatic brain injuries. We have a contract with Georgia Tech, and what the student would buy the book and then come to us, and we would order the book on e-text from Georgia Tech, and they would scan the book, send it to the student in a PDF file where they can open it up, and it highlights each word as it reads it aloud to the student. This is really, really helpful. Next slide, please. Blind and visually impaired is another, or some other disabilities that we work with, and these are also some different accommodations: e-textbooks, digital recorders, CCTV, computer access, JAWS, Magic, Windows 7 magnifying tool, Read and Write Gold, extended test time. Some students might need a scribe or a reader or a lab assistant that have visual impairments. Next slide, please. Also, deaf and hard of hearing students, we have interpreters, we have captionists, note takers, extended time on tests, and assistive listening devices. We also have students with mental illness, severe medical conditions, autism spectrum disorder, and mobility impairments. Next. And it's over. Thank you. Anyway, these are the administrators and staff listed. Dr. Michael Anderson is our Interim Director for Disability Services. Julio Cruz is Campus Coordinator, Assistive Technology. Karen Green is in charge of Deaf and Hard of Hearing Service for all campuses. Michael Anderson is also the coordinator at Dunwoody. I'm at Alpharetta. Victor Robertson is at the Decatur campus. Henrietta Lindsay's at Newton campus. And Mary Davis, Senior Administrative Secretary. Bana is staff interpreter, and then we have part-time test proctors, readers, scribes, and note takers on each campus. Normally, when I do these presentations, they're always face-to-face, which I prefer. It's kind of hard talking to a computer screen, and I usually just kind of hit the highlights like I just did, because I know that most people really want their questions answered, so I like to leave plenty of time for questions. So I see that someone has a question. What documentation is needed? Okay, it depends on the disability. If it's a learning disability, we would probably look at, most students coming from high school are going to have a psychological, and that would need to be current. If it is not current, I know that a lot of the high schools now, some of those students have not been tested since elementary and middle school. They don't retest every 3 years like they used to, but we do give provisional accommodations for 1 semester until you can get new testing. Georgia State, the Regent Center for Learning Disorders at Georgia State does a great neuropsych for $500. They do the same thing at UGA. What date is current? If it's a psychological, we like to see that the student has been tested on adult norms. Usually that would be probably junior, senior year of high school. They would be considered they would probably be tested on adult norms then. If it's a medical issue, we have 2 forms that are on our website. One is for psychological, which would be for instance, if you have an anxiety disorder, you would have your psychiatrist fill out this 1-page form with your diagnosis and how it impacts you in a classroom. We also, if it's medical, I have a couple of students that have seizures, and the medication that they take for their seizures causes them to process slower than others, so they need extended time for their tests. It really depends on the disability as to what kinds of documentation we need. Normally, if they've come out of high school and they've had some kind of service in high school, I tell them to bring me whatever they have, and I make copies of it and give them back their originals and just kind of go from there. I will tell you this, I do have a fair amount of students that come to me that have never had services in high school, and they do have disabilities. In the high schools, if they're doing well, they technically are not going to be getting an IEP or a 504 plan. You know, some people have had injuries, traumatic brain injuries. They've had some mental health issues, things that were not really identified in high school, and somehow or another they got through it. But at the college level, we can accommodate them even though they did not get services in the high school. So that was kind of new for me, which is a good thing. So.
Hey, Patsy, this is Jerry.
Yeah.
Would you mind if I said a few words about the Regent Center? Since I
please do.
work there?
Please do.
Just kind of is my thing.
Yeah, say something about it. Please do.
That's okay. For the state of Georgia has disability documentation guidelines that have been established for the state-funded colleges and universities. So those are all of those that are part of the university system of Georgia are following these documentation guidelines. And the idea is with when you come to college that we want the documentation to be current, and we like it within 3 years, but that's a guideline. It can be a little older. It just really depends on how thorough that documentation is. So you teachers who are with us today, and you're working with some of your students and trying to help them get their documentation, I have to say the documentation is extremely important to colleges and universities. We don't have IEP teams. We don't have these teams of people who get together and talk about the student and try to come up with interventions, because that's not our role is not to give interventions there. It's more for access. So the documentation is super, super important. So the more that they can bring to their disability office at the college, the better it is for that disability provider. They're not guessing a lot. So current, roughly within 3 years, and as Patsy said, most give provisional services. If there's medical conditions that are lifelong conditions, like if you are blind or you are in a wheelchair, those kinds of conditions, we're not, so you're not looking for something super current. If they can provide you with information from a doctor, that's great. but I mean, if you're blind, that's really not going to change so much as you move through your life. So there are some lifelong condition or medical conditions that are permanent and non-varying, and those have different kinds of I guess, recency assigned to them. But if you take one thing from this presentation, it's really documentation is important, and self-advocacy is important. And maybe, I don't know, Patsy, if you can talk off the cuff a little bit about self-advocacy.
Oh yeah, big time. I have a lot to say about that.
Good.
Yes. Okay. When I do presentations, and again, I normally do face-to-face, and I'm much more comfortable with this is new for me. But anyway, parents will often ask, what can we do to prepare our students for college? The biggest thing that I see when I first meet with a student, and usually a parent comes with them, I notice that every question that I ask, the student always looks at the parent for the answer. They either don't know what their disability is, or they know what it is, but they don't really understand it, and they really don't know what their needs are. I really encourage parents, and I'm not a parent myself, but I certainly have seen quite a bit with the parenting thing and students with disabilities, and I know, I can only imagine how difficult it is to be doing that for your child for 12 years and then all of a sudden leave it up to your child, because then you're worried, okay, they're not going to do it, they're going to forget, all of those things. You know, try to educate them on their disability, what it is, what it means, that it's not going to be something that's going to prohibit them from having a career or being able to be in the workforce or go to school or whatever. Encourage them in that respect, that they really need to not just know what the disability is, they need to thoroughly understand it. They need to know what they need to be successful. The other thing that I would say is, as much as possible, they should be doing everything that all the other students are doing to prepare for college, because when they get to us, they're going to get accommodations, but they're still going to have to do the same work in the same time everybody else has, and that's sometimes a big shock. So I guess what I would say is, closer it gets to senior year, try to start pulling back a little bit, and you're going to have to just trust them to start, you know, doing some things on their own, and just excuse me, check behind them and encourage them. Sorry, I had to do the cough drop thing now.
Hi, Patsy.
Hey.
Go ahead.
Oh, hi. My name is Nathan. I'm actually a faculty member at Georgia Tech that's affiliated with BreakThru. And in line with what you're saying about preparing students, I'm wondering if you can speak about what faculty members in college can do to help pull students with disabilities along. I've had one or two students in the past who were getting accommodations while in high school, but for some reason just chose not to take them in college. And I felt strongly they could have benefited from them, but you know, my hands seem to be tied about, you know, trying to get students, you know, in the system. So I'm wondering if you can speak to maybe what faculty members in college can do to sort of be supportive and help.
Well, you know, unfortunately, that is a big problem, and a lot of times I don't get these students until it's midterm, and then panic sets in, because all of a sudden they realize that they are not doing well. They never came to me to get their accommodations, and all of a sudden they're in panic mode and they need them like right now. From a professor's standpoint, unless a student is to you, which does happen sometimes, I have had students that weren't doing real well, that a professor would talk to them, you know, is there anything I can do to help, encourage you, or whatever? And if they disclose to the professor that, well, I got some help in high school, you know, I always tell them to please refer them to me, or just tell them where my office is and please come and see me. I tell the people in the Learning and Tutoring Center that too, because a lot of times our people in the Learning and Tutoring Center will talk to students that will disclose that they got help in high school and that they're not coming to disability services at this point. It's a hard call. I don't know why young people that have had help all the way through high school think that they're going to graduate and magically be okay in college and not need the extra help. I think it's an immaturity thing, but you know, I would just say if they hint to you in any way that they had help in high school, I would encourage them to go to the Disability Services office and see if they would qualify for some help.
Yeah, that's really great.
Yeah, I appreciate that. In my case, it was a student who I suspected was dyslexic.
Yeah.
And they didn't want help. You know, they said, "Well, I'm in college now. I don't need it anymore." And I'm like, "I think you would benefit from having it," and implored them. And for whatever reason, they just would not get that.
You know what? I will tell you a big reason that students have told me when I ask them, why didn't you come to me, you know, in the beginning? In high school, it's kind of he knows who the special ed teachers are and where those classrooms are, and it's a stigma. And I think that when they get to college, they think it's going to be the same thing, and they don't want to be identified like that. They don't realize that we don't go looking for them. You know, our office isn't any different than anyone else's. We're just another staff member. So I just think that they have this idea that, you know, that we're going to embarrass them, that people in college are now going to find out that they have a disability, but it's completely different. And when I can ever get them in my office to explain that, sometimes it alleviates that fear.
Did I even send this week? Ooh, I even sent BreakThru this week. Ooh. Okay.
You know, I think some of the mentors here who are also teachers, that's one of the things that you could really encourage.
Did I send? I'll check and see if I sent.
Oh, I just thought of something else too. I had someone in the Learning and Tutoring Center come to me just within the last couple of weeks and said, you know, I'm working with this young man. He's having a difficult time with his reading. And she said, I don't really know what to say to him, and I don't want to embarrass him. I said, just ask him if he ever got any extra help in high school. Just ask him that question, that okay to do that. And you know, in looking into it further, we found, you know, that he was from another country, and at home they don't speak English. So that was causing him to have a lot of difficulty with reading English and speaking English. But, you know, I said it's always okay to ask, did you get some extra help in high school? That's a very good lead-in question.
You know, I think that as our teachers here what they can do is you can encourage all of your students to start this process early. And by early, I mean, you know, while you're still a senior in high school, you know, make
That's
sure
right.
Your documentation's up to date. Go and have a phone call or even visit the disability office at the campus. But if the teachers and the special ed teachers know about these kinds of services, then that will help the student, I think. Sometimes I don't think that all of the services that are available on college campuses are actually known by, yeah, what is happening? I'm hearing a lot of background noise of people talking. Is everyone else picking that up too?
Yes, yes.
Okay,
yes.
Everyone needs to mute. Patsy, not you.
Okay. Thank you,
Jerry. Everybody else needs to mute because we're getting. Okay. Yay.
I muted everybody. Sorry.
Thank
All
goodness.
right. Yay.
Thank you, Miss Summer.
I used my abilities as an organizer and I muted everyone except
Woo!
y'all.
Yay.
So you have to unmute yourself when you want to talk. Sorry.
Yeah, try to keep yourself muted, and if you want to talk, you can unmute, but mute back.
Jerry,
Yeah,
I just thought of something. You know, I'm ADD, so I have to say things as they pop into my head or they're gone.
you're
But
fine.
I think I absolutely love it when a parent will call and say, my son or daughter is a senior in high school and we're kind of looking at colleges. I love that. I love for them to come and talk to me, because then I can get rid of some of those fears that the student may have right then and there about how things are going to go. And it's not like high school, and, you know, it's different in a great way.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I love when parents do that, and I encourage that. You know, the sooner the better. When we have open houses, that's when we get a lot of our high school students. And, you know, if they have specific questions about their son or daughter's learning disability, I always encourage them to call me for an appointment and just come in so we can talk about their specific situation.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's great when they come in early, because you know, they're just going to be that ahead of the game. And, you know, that's also a good time to do a little bit of career counseling, in terms of sometimes when I ask students what kinds of classes they've had, and I know they've had self-contained classes all through high school, I get really concerned about how they're going to do at a college, a two-year college, that's going to move them into a four-year college or university. Sometimes that's a good time to talk about technical colleges or other things if they're
Mm-hmm.
open to it, at least giving them some suggestions,
Mm-hmm.
you know, depending on what their background has been in high school. But again, if they can do what other students are doing as much as possible, love the team talk classes. I don't know what they call them in some of the other counties. We called them team talk, where you have a special ed teacher and a general ed teacher together, but yet they're going to get, you know, they're going to get the general ed information. That's always real good. You know, sometimes it's possible and they do well, sometimes it's not. But as I said before, do as much as they can of what everybody else is doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you know, one of the other things, Patsy's already talked about documentation. She's talked about being your own self-advocate and starting early and doing research. Another big piece is computers, and knowing how to use computers and any kind of what we would call assistive technology that the student might benefit from. And if
Right.
they could learn those skills while they're in high school, it makes it so much easier. And I'll be quiet. I think Patsy and Julio probably could talk a lot about assistive technology.
Well, I'm going to
go
say
ahead.
this. I'm going to say this, Jerry, and then I'm going to let Julio just speak a little bit about assistive technology, because he is very knowledgeable about that. He is my go-to, our go-to person at all 5 campuses when we get students that need different types of things, and he's done some really great creative things with some of our students. But now I forgot what I was going to say. Brain shorted out. Oh, mercy. Okay.
Julio.
Anyway, next. Julio, talk for a minute. Maybe it'll come back to me.
Hello, this is Julio. I'm the Safety Technology Coordinator for Georgia Primary College, and also the Disability Services Coordinator for Clarkston campus. So I kind of do 50-50. I have spent a lot of time working with our students here at Georgia Primary College with different assistive technology. We're lucky to have a very well-prepared college when it comes to assistive technology. So we have from computers to different ergonomic devices, keyboards, CCTVs, and equipment for the deaf and hard of hearing that will definitely help our students to succeed in the college setting. We actually do a brief assessment as far as assistive technology with all our students when they come in. Usually, if this is their first semester, I always tell the coordinators from other campuses to refer them to me. And there's always a one-time or a first-time meeting with me, at least one time, when they are enrolled in disability services, where I actually meet with them one-to-one and explain what kind of software we have, what devices we have, and I kind of give them a little bit of training on how to access the electronic textbooks, how to use the text-to-speech software. There are some of my students that are on a wheelchair or quads that they have very limited usage of their hands, and they need very specialized training on how to use speech input so that they can dictate to the computer instead of typing. Students with multiple sclerosis and cerebral palsy, which have very severe motor issues, and they can barely use the keyboards, and there are always key guards that we order for keyboards and all the devices that really help our students here. And without the technology here, they won't be able to survive here. Now, we do have a lot of assistive technology here in the different campuses at Georgia Primary College, but whatever we don't have, I always work in collaboration with Tools for Life and AMAC and different Touch the Future and different where students can arrange for to loan to borrow different equipments that we don't have and all that. So one of the things that have been occurring to me more and more now that tablets and cell phones and all that they are in the market, so easy to get now. I've been having students coming to me with smartphones and tablets and all these mobile devices, and they want to use it as a tool to have the tablet or the device read the books for them. So, and this is very useful because students with visual impairments and students with traumatic brain injury or some sort of injury that give them headaches or their eyes get really tired, they can really benefit from having, the smartphones or their tablets read the books for them. And it can be really comfortable because they can do it either laying down on their bed, or they can be working out or walking and at the same time be listening to the. Again, we do have training sections that I personally conduct with our students, especially those that come to GPC for the first time. And I also provide sort of like a tech support on an ongoing basis if a student gets stuck with a particular software or any device that they're not familiar with. I am always here to help them. I usually work based on appointments, and students set up an appointment with me, and I usually go to their campus. I'm seeing a question here. As teachers in the schools, okay. As teachers in the schools, are you seeing students who use assistive technology?
Yeah, I meant that more for those teachers who are in attendance. Are they seeing students coming to high school using technology? Because in the olden days, when I lived in disability services, we didn't see much. And then they'd come to college and assistive technology was all brand new, and it was hard to learn college and a technology at the same time. So my question was more for the entire audience, what
Right.
What are you seeing?
And it's also kind of hard to keep up with all the technology that is out there. From my experience, I can tell you that the technology for people with disability goes even faster, at a faster pace than the regular technology. So whenever there's an app out there for something, there's always an app to do something for a student with disability. And I've been more than blessed to have the opportunity to go to different conferences like ATIA in Orlando, where I am exposed to all the technology that is out there and is current. So whenever I come back from those technologies, I'm pretty much aware of what's current and how I can apply that to our students. I'll leave this part to specific questions. If anybody have specific question.
Somebody typed one, Julio.
Yeah, I'm not seeing. Okay, there you go. All right.
How can teachers learn about assistive technology? Is that, I guess that's the...
Well, they can, but like I said before, assistive technology or the technology in general for people with disability, it's kind of like it goes at a very fast pace, especially when it comes to apps. There are different apps that can pick or read books for students, and there are different apps for Apple devices, and there are different apps for Android, and there are different apps for Windows. So if an instructor is really likes technology, and if they are really into it, and if they have the time, that's an amazing journey. I mean, I will definitely encourage teachers to be aware, and at least to know that what the technology is out there for our students with disability.
I think as the students, I guess, as they're nearing that transition and they're meeting with their team, I believe they can pull in other people into those IEP meetings. And please type in your answer if I'm totally wrong, so or if I'm right, but go ahead and correct me if I'm wrong. One of the people that you could pull in is maybe a vocational rehabilitation counselor, and I'm not sure if many of you know about vocational rehabilitation services, and we can tell you a little bit more about them later, but they have an assistive technology area, and they can start educating the student. They can look at the report, that psychological report, and see what the student's deficits are, and then maybe suggest different technologies that might help offset that deficit. And so it can start with maybe bringing a specialist into those team meetings. You can obviously, find someone like Julio, but I have to tell you, having an assistive technology specialist on a college campus may be a little bit rare. GPC is amazing with all the services that they provide, and if you go to a bigger school like a UGA or Georgia Tech, you might find assistive technology specialists. But if you go to some of our medium to smaller size schools, you may not always find someone on that college campus that does assistive technology. So it's maybe important to help the students seek that out while they're still in high school, and vocational rehab services is a good place to start.
And Jay, I need to add this. I really appreciate that, if a student has an account with vocational rehab, because they do provide a very detailed evaluation about the student. They perform a very thorough assessment on what kind of technology they can benefit from. So when I receive that report, that will definitely help me tremendously as to what kind of device we should look for the student. And yeah, it will simplify my job tremendously. And I need to say that if when I get the student, and if the student is kind of like needs a special attention, for lack of a better word, if the student needs some specialized equipment that we don't have, or I might not be familiar with, suggest, encourage, and also refer the student to open up an account with vocational rehab, because they're there to help, and they have a technology department just for that purpose, for to address the technology issues with students or anybody that opens up an account with vocational rehab. I think I saw a question here asking about a low-cost device or assistive technology. We do have all the technology that we provide to the students are free of charge. The only exception is that, or the only rule is that, and this is really an OIT policy, is that the equipment that we have needs to be used inside the college campus. It cannot be taken home. And this is also why I suggest students to open up an account with the VR or vocational rehabilitation agency, because they can actually take those devices with them home. And sometimes the vocational rehabilitation agency provides these devices for them. Like I have students for which the VR has provided computers and CCTVs and different equipments that had they not had any vocational rehab account, they wouldn't have been able to take it home with them, because we do have it here, but it's for the use here. The students need to use it on campus. They can take it home with them. So.
You know, if you have a lot of maybe more specific questions about documentation and the cost and that kind of thing, we can talk about it now. We have time, but you can also feel free to call and contact Patsy or Julio or even myself at the Regent Center. We all deal with documentation every day, and so we can help figure that out for you and your student. I think Patsy recommended that students, when they're either juniors or seniors, request a psychological from the school, and that way there is not a cost. Now, schools don't always like to do those evaluations again, so it might take some of your intervention as a teacher and or the parent involvement. Certainly it's smart to know what the guidelines are for college documentation, because you don't want to go off and get an evaluation and then have it not meet some guidelines. So it's really smart to have the students try to get an updated evaluation before they leave high school. Go ahead. Did someone have a question?
Jerry, I just wanted to say, having been in the school systems and everything, typically schools do, if the parent goes in and says, I need updated testing for my son or daughter for college, they're not going to do it. They're going to say that they're not required to do that for colleges. They're just only required to do a psychological for diagnostic purposes. And you kind of have to do some arm twisting there, but if you tell them that you want updated documentation for college, they're probably going to say no. So you have to just kind of try to figure out a way to get them to do it. They don't want to do it. The biggest thing that I have found is they will try to do something that is not even really a full psychological. And so what I would tell them is, if they're going to do one, they need to go to the Regent Center for Learning Disorders website, and it has on there what is required to meet Board of Regents guidelines. So they would need to follow that. I know that $500 sounds like a lot of money, but if you've ever had one done privately, it can be $2,000 or whatever, and whatever they want to charge you. And it doesn't mean it's going to be a great psychological. Sometimes it's not even a really good one. I do know that the Regent Center does really wonderful ones that will take them all the way through college. They're very thorough. It's over 2 to 3 days for the testing, and then they go over all of the testing results with the student, and then you get a typed copy of it and, go from there. But that's what I always recommend. We have gotten ones from vocational rehab. Honestly, they're not great. Um, and I have referred some of my students to Voc Rehab to get psychologicals, and I had a rehab counselor call me and say, we don't just do psychologicals for students. We are in the business of getting students with disabilities jobs. And so you kind of have to play a little game with them. I always tell my students, just tell them you don't know what you want to do. You're in college, you do not know what you want to do. You need current testing to receive your accommodations. Voc Rehab does a great vocational evaluation that matches up interests with abilities, which is very good. If they think that you already know what you want to do, they probably won't do a voc eval unless they think it's unrealistic, what you say you want to do. But you kind of have to play a little game with Voc Rehab. I worked with them for years. Had to deal with them for years. And there's good ones and there's not good ones.
Right, vocational rehab is made up of a lot of different vocational rehab counselors, and so it's just important to make your requests and to come armed with knowledge, and I think that's part why we hold this academy is to try to say, here's the things that you need, here's the information that you need to start gathering now, and to make it a little bit easier for you when you make that jump to college. Does anyone else have any questions or comments they'd like to make?
Jerry, I want to say one more thing.
Oh, please.
We have some really good information on the GPC website. It's www.gpc.edu. And then if you go to current student, then student services, then disability services. And there's little things to the left. You click on student guide, and that will tell you a lot of the differences between K through 12 and post-secondary. There's also frequently asked questions. There's information about assistive technology. There's a lot of really good information on that site. And sometimes it's helpful if you have a parent that is kind of resistant and feels as though that their student is going to get everything that they got in high school and college. I think that's a good place to send them so that they can read to realize that that's not the way it's going to be and get prepared for that.
Wow, and that's a fantastic point, Patsy, that a lot of students think that they're going to get those same services that they might have had in high school, and some are the same, some they will.
Right, correct.
But some really don't make that transition with the student, and one that jumps to mind is a student came to me once, it was a real life situation, and asked when they could retake their test because they had made a bad grade on it. And I said, well, you can't retake your test because you made a bad grade. And they said, well, in high school I could retake the test until I got a better grade. I said, well, oops, that doesn't work here in college. So there are some things that worked in high school that don't work in college, and it's all because in high school you are all about teaching and intervention, and in college, even though we are about teaching, it's all about just providing access to the information, and it's not about developing interventions to help that student learn better. So it's a very two different missions, and because of that, it creates this kind of gap that we're all struggling to fill with accommodation. So great point, Patsy, about it's important to let those students know that not everything is gonna be the same as in high school.
Right. And a lot of this is gonna be learn as you go, and that's the way it is, and we know that when we get students. So we just try to help them along, and they eventually get it. It's just a different way of thinking. I actually, when I started doing this, I had to think differently because I was so used to doing whatever it took to help my students to get through high school. And then I had to kind of realize that I couldn't do that at the college level. I had to pull back, and let the student come to me. It's hard, so I can only imagine as a parent what that would be like. I have an off-the-wall question to ask. Is April Higgins on here? Did she go to North Springs High School?
Is she still here with us?
April Higgins.
April, unmute you. Oh, maybe we have to unmute you.
Yes, April, I know you. I know your brother, Joseph, Junior Higgins.
It's a small world.
It is a small world.
Well, listen, are there any final questions from anybody? And please understand this, even though we're ending, this isn't the end. If other thoughts come up later, you can feel free to email us. You all have my emails. You may say, yeah, we do. But I'll have Patsy and Julio put their email addresses in the chat, and you could take those down, and you can feel free to contact us at any time. But is there anything else?
I can't think of anything else off the cuff. As I said before, I'm a lot better in dealing with people in person. It's really weird talking to a computer, but anyway, I felt like I stumbled through a lot of it. But I hope people got something out of it that will help their students.
You did great.
Julio's typing in our email addresses.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
April,
and thank all of you.
I just wanted to say that April, I'm so proud of you. You're a special ed teacher. Yes, good girl.
Well, thank you very much, mentors. You have been fantastic as always. I may be contacting you all soon for a special intimate gathering, maybe in Second Life or maybe here through some kind of way to get some impressions from you. But thank you so much for your time tonight, and try to stay warm and have a great weekend, everybody.
Jerry, thanks for putting this together. We appreciate you.
You guys are fantastic. Thank you, Patsy. Thank you, Julio. You guys are great.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. You guys take care and have a good evening.
You too. Bye, all.
Good night.
Good night.